I went to Las Vegas over the weekend, but I'm still going to break down last night's episode of Game of Thrones in The Good, the Bad, and the Martin. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
A lot of things happened in last night's episode, so we have a lot to get into. But first, let me give you a quick reminder that the podcast is now officially on iTunes, so please subscribe there. You can easily find it by typing in Super Dario World Podcast in the iTunes Store search bar. If you could also rate the show there. Let me check. I haven't even checked. Am I still 5 stars? I got to check. Boom. Yes, I am. Still going strong. All right. I'm really happy. It's always kind of nerve-wracking when I check every day because I keep expecting, to like the floor to drop off, but we're still going strong. I appreciate every single person who supported me there. However, if you don't like iTunes, you can still find it on SoundCloud and YouTube. Still not on the iHeartRadio app yet. Again, I'm waiting. They asked me to wait for something, and I can't really say what it is yet because I'm not really sure how it's going to work, but whatever. I'll keep you posted as soon as I get news from that front. As always, please add me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Dario the Show. You can always contact me there with any comments, questions, or suggestions. Feedback's still great. This weekend, I owe a lot of people a lot of replies, but I'll get into that in a minute. But okay, let's get started. Like I said before, and I think I mentioned it last week, I went to Las Vegas over the weekend, which was a lot of fun. Now, I'm a big supporter of the rule that whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And this weekend, it was actually way easier for me to keep that rule going because I lost my phone and my wallet for a good chunk of my trip there. Like, for a really long time, I was completely uncommunicated. You know how you say that you wouldn't leave your house without your wallet, keys, or phone? I didn't have any of them. So I freaked out for a bit. Fortunately, everything popped up again. Turns out drunk people aren't that great at putting things back where they're supposed to go. Anyway, in the end, it was actually kind of nice to be without all that stuff, because A, I couldn't spend that much money because I didn't have my wallet, and B, I could actually enjoy the moment. I just walked around. I saw things because there was a big Canelo fight this weekend, which was controversial. Also, there was a lot of drama with the group of friends I was with. There was almost a fight between us in the street. So if anybody finds a video of 2 dudes almost getting into a fight on the street, and one of the guys trying to stop the fight looks like me, send me that video because I'm pretty sure because we had people recording us, so it was a scene. It was a whole scene. If anybody finds that video of 2 idiots getting into a fight in the middle of the day in the Las Vegas Strip, right in front of New York, send me that link, please. I want to see that because I'm pretty sure I look ridiculous, but I'm sure they looked even worse. So I need to make fun of them with it. Like it's one of the few things that I'm looking forward to have that to make fun of them for the rest of their lives. Anyway, I couldn't load anything from the weekend because I didn't take any pictures, didn't take any video. I didn't have my phone on me. So, I did a bunch of fun stuff. It's just I couldn't share. But it was nice. At the end, it's nice to step away from all that stuff and just enjoy the moment. So, sorry. And for all the messages, I have a ton of messages that I need to reply. I haven't read them. I will. I'll always catch up. But right now, it's just a mess. Also, one of my favorite things of going to Vegas is actually driving there. I know a lot of people don't like driving to Vegas. I've never flown. I've always driven. So I find that a lot of fun. I like being on the road. The way there is way better than the way back. The drive back is torture, but still it's fun. I like being on the open road, like going super fast. Going exactly at the speed limit, always, safely, with both hands on the wheel, 10 and 2. So I love being on the open road, just singing your lungs out, or just, wandering around you because your brain wanders and you start thinking about things. You're listening to a song and you start, you imagine like a story going on. And actually one of the bands, I played one of their songs in the opening of this break. The song's called Keep Quiet. The band's called The Protomen. And I listened to both their albums on the way there and on the way back because, what they did is they created a rock opera based on Mega Man. So they're telling you a whole story, and it's a reimagining of Mega Man that's amazing. And so since I read the story, the best way for you to see it, there's some videos on YouTube where they kind of do an 8-bit animation of that particular story. but I already read it, and because when you buy the CD, it comes with a little book, and it tells you what's happening in the story. So either way, if you want to, I recommend you buy it, because it's not that known. I don't know why this band is not better known. They're amazing. They're amazing musicians. First album is totally different from the second one, and I love them both. Anyway, so on the drive there was like watching a movie in my head, because I already know the whole story, and I was just picturing it. It was fun. I enjoy doing that. But also, on the road, your mind tends to wander, and I started thinking for some reason about Avengers Endgame and kind of going through it in my head, because the first time, the thing that really bugged me was time travel. I'll always bitch and complain about time travel. It gives me migraines. But I started thinking about other things going through, and I was like, so this thing here doesn't make sense with this thing here. Like, oh, this thing was great, how the way they linked it up. So I think on the way there, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go through all the MCU movies again, and I'm going to re-rank them. So I'll do this because once Game of Thrones is done, I'm going to need to find something else to focus on. So I think I'm going to do that. For the next few weeks until Game of Thrones is done, I'll just rewatch all the MCU movies, and I'll re-rank them. I'll officially re-rank them, because I think Endgame kind of screws things up there. I won't say where I think it should go, but again, I need to see it again, because just thinking about it, certain things did not make sense. So I'll wait for that, but I will be working on that eventually. So, but it'll be after Thrones is done. But what, 2 more weeks? Shouldn't be that hard. Shouldn't be that hard to watch 22 movies in 2 weeks. Come on, should be more than enough. Anyway. If you've never gone to a pool party in Vegas, I highly recommend it. They're a blast. They're the best type of parties I've ever been to, if you don't mind getting wet and maybe a little sunburned. But yeah, it's the most fun. We actually got to see Sed play live on the day we were there, so things got nuts. I love Vegas so much, but I think I'm starting to feel my age, because that drive back was rough, man. It was rough. But anyway, no, I still managed to make it back on time and watch Game of Thrones, so let's break it down. So episode 4 of the last season of Game of Thrones aired last night, and it was titled The Last of the Starks. Now, I don't see why that title is relevant, but it doesn't really matter, really. It doesn't affect anything. But so far, I think it's been the best episode this season. Things actually happened. A lot of things actually happened, and it's great because there's only 2 episodes left. So they built up a lot of stuff. I was happy with this episode. Mostly, I had some issues with it because that's the type of person I am, but it's the best one of this season. I don't know what else to tell you, but I'll get into it a little bit more. And I'll also break down, because last Friday, if you remember, I did 3 things I hope would happen and 3 things I hope wouldn't happen. So I'll keep score on that too. But just to remind you, we're going to break it down, the good, the bad, and the Martin, which is a segment where the good and the bad, pretty simple. I'll tell you things that I thought was good. I'll tell you what I thought was bad. And in the Martin, I'll give you like a special little fun fact about either George R. R. Martin or about the books in general. So let's get into it. Okay, so just like last week, we're going to go one good, one bad, one good, one bad, because so many things happened last episode. And let's start from the top. Let's start with the best thing that happened on last night's episode, and it's tied up with one of the things that I did not want to happen on last episode. So on my list, the third thing that I did not want to happen was I did not want this to be just another wasted episode. I wanted there to be something. I wanted there to be a change in the plot from the beginning to the end, and I wanted to be considerable. That's exactly what happened. Stuff happened. The plot moved forward. Great. Fantastic. It was not just sitting there watching nothing happen. It was really annoying. It was really annoying on the first 2 episodes. This one was actually great. Conversations that should have happened way, way before in the series were finally had. Like the Hound talking to Sansa is a conversation that should have happened a long, long time ago. You know, when you think you might die, you kind of tend to try to get closure on things. Well, it finally happened. So yeah, it was good. A lot of really important conversations happened. I just would have moved them up in the season. You know, it would have made episodes 1 and 2 more exciting, and it would have given you a lot more to work with for the second half of the season. Because, again, episodes 1 and 2, a lot of wasted stuff. But okay, so they did not do that. It was great. And now let's move on to the worst thing they could have done. And it's actually kind of tied up with one of the things that I hope would happen that didn't. But let me explain. The worst thing that they did this episode. Daenerys Targaryen decides to legitimize Gendry. Now, she names him the Lord of Storm's End, the Warden of the Stormlands, he legitimizes him as Robert Baratheon's son, so now he's Gendry Baratheon. Now, here's the issue. For a girl that is so concerned with her boyfriend, Aegon Targaryen, who's Jon Snow, actually having a better claim to the throne than her, she just legitimized her biggest competition. Nobody has a better claim to the throne than Gendry Baratheon, okay? You legitimize the one guy who has a better claim than both of you. Because that guy, the last sitting king was a Baratheon. And the only reason why Cersei's still there is because it's because of bullshit, honestly, because that's not how medieval succession works. But so technically the next person in line should be a Baratheon or a Baratheon cousin or some kind of relative. And if you just legitimized King Robert's son, who, by the way, would be his eldest son, what were you thinking? You created a whole you're trying to get rid of the competition, but you created even more. Who the fuck wrote this thing? Who wrote that plot? I was looking forward to the moment that Daenerys figured out who Gendry was, because I thought that she would immediately want to kill him because he's the biggest competition, the biggest threat to her throne, even as a bastard, by the way, because the Blackfire rebellions were about the Targaryen bastards wanting to take control because they feel they have a legitimate claim. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. The Blackfire rebellions are really complicated. But Gendry is the biggest threat. So whenever she found out who the fuck Gendry was, I expected her to lose her shit, and I expected that to cause drama with Jon and drama with Arya. Now they kind of just like, oh yeah, we're friends. And it's cool, you can be Lord of Storm's End, even though you have a better claim to the throne than I do, because your family won it by right of conquest. So, yeah, not smart, Daenerys. What the fuck? People who wrote this, what the fuck? What were you thinking? Like, your whole storyline between Jon and Daenerys is that one of them has a better claim than the other, and it's causing tensions. And even if Jon doesn't want to be the king, it can cause drama, because if other people know who he is, then they might want to push him to claim the throne, blah, 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 because they have their own political interests. Same thing can happen to Gendry. The only difference is that Gendry's not banging you and he's banging the chick who doesn't like you. So, stupid. Also, they made Gendry Rivers. The bastards of the Riverlands are called Rivers. Gendry is a bastard from the Crownlands. The Crownlands bastards are called Waters. His real name is Gendry Waters. You know, in the north, they call you Snow, ergo Jon Snow. In the Vale, they call you Stone. In the Reach, they call you Flowers. In Dorne, they call you Sand. Don't make shit up. We know where Gendry was. We saw him. We saw him where he appeared first. He said his entire life he spent it in the Crownlands. Why? It's such a little thing. This is what bugs me. Because people are going to be like, oh, Dario, it's such a little thing. Just let it go. No, it's a little detail that if they'd done a second of research, if they would have cared even a little bit, they would have gotten it right. But no, it's like they, on purpose, want to piss us off. But anyway, okay, that was the most egregious thing. And it's tied up to one of the things that I hoped would happen in this episode that didn't. I wanted them to clear up the whole dumb Daenerys Jon drama. Like, oh no, nobody can think about getting them married. And they actually made it worse. But I'll get into that more later on in this, because I'm going to try to go through the whole episode chronologically. So let's start from the beginning. So the episode opens up with the burning of the bodies, right? Which is fine. I thought it was a little bit of a waste of time in certain things, but fine. It's okay. The only thing that I thought was really weird was that Jon was making a speech to nobody. I mean, do you guys notice that? Everybody was behind him, and yet he was making a speech to the cadavers. I mean, I saw that there were one or two guys there ready to set the things on fire, but honestly, everybody else who was relevant was behind him, so he should have made the speech to them. It was really weird. And I think I can figure out why they did it, and it's just to save money, because if Jon turns around, then they have to make a shot with him and all the bodies in the background, which means they would have needed a green screen instead of doing it in front of the wall of the set that they'd already built with all the people there. So I get what they did it, but it's lazy and I don't like it, because they could have done a shot by the side or a close-up. So that was kind of silly, but it's fine. The thing that really caught my eye was that Ghost was there, and he was missing an ear and was bleeding. So everybody else had time to shower and clean up and build the piles and set the bodies to burn them up. And nobody thought about cleaning up the wolf that's missing an ear. Really? Nobody? Not even a bandage or something? Not even just clean out all the blood? Because the wolf is still bleeding, and everybody just ignored him. They just ignored him. Also, it's kind of weird that if he's injured, he's not sitting or laying down, but those are just minor details. It looks kind of cool, but it's one of those things that get me because I'm kind of intense with those things, and it just doesn't make sense. And I've been obsessing with ghosts for a really long time. But I'll give them one thing. They did one thing that I wanted to happen, and I wanted Ghost to be acknowledged in this episode. I wanted somebody to notice him, and they did. And now I fucking hate it because John finally acknowledges Ghost, and then he just, all right, well, be free. So not even leaving him in Winterfell, not taking him with him to a battlefield, nothing. It's just like, okay, we'll go back to the north. Well, in the north, by the way, in the land of always winter, we don't know how much damage the Night King did, so we don't know if there's anybody else alive north of Winterfell, and we don't know if there's any game left for them to eat. We don't know nothing, and it's wintertime, so there's going to be even less than what there already was. So you're just sending him off to die, whatever, and he didn't even pet him goodbye. Like, there were so many scenes where, he's injured, your dog's injured, well, your wolf's injured, it may want some attention, like, pet him or something, like, or at least say goodbye. He doesn't even say goodbye. It just bugged me. I would never treat my dogs that way, so I don't understand how you could treat your magical direwolf that way. It really upset me. I know it shouldn't, but it really upset me. I know I asked for somebody to acknowledge Ghost, but god damn it, Game of Thrones has a way of making me regret getting what I want because they find a way to fuck it up. But okay, that was the bad. Let's move on to something good. The next scene is the dinner in the Great Hall, and that one is actually pretty interesting. A lot of stuff happens in that Great Hall. The thing that bugged me, I already mentioned, was the Gendry thing, which made no sense. But the interactions between the characters celebrating that they didn't die, I thought was pretty good. Tormund was the best in that scene. Tormund was freaking hysterical. I loved every second of Tormund on screen. His heartbreaking, him crying, then finding another hotter chick to bang. Tormund is one of the best parts of this show, and if they send him off somewhere, I'm going to be pissed. If Tormund doesn't show up again, I'm going to be pissed, because, again, he was one of the better parts of this show. He was hysterical. The actor was great. The character was super interesting. You never really knew exactly what he was going to do, how he was going to react. The stories that came out of his mouth were completely ridiculous, but they were great. Tormund also finally talks about something that I've been waiting for them to mention for 3 seasons, I think, or 2.5. And that's that Jon fucking came back from the dead. Nobody mentions that. That would be my number one selling point, right? That would be like my pitch. Whenever I'm trying to convince people to follow Jon, be like, why should I follow this guy? Because he came back from the fucking dead. What? Yeah, they killed him, and he came back from the dead. So I'd be like, it's like Jesus Christ, all right? He's freaking Jesus Christ. People would be impressed by that. It would be a major selling point. So I'm glad that somebody talked about it. Finally. And it had to be my boy Tormund, so I'm happy about that. Okay, so that was good. The drinking game that the Lannisters were playing with Brienne was also fun. The interactions felt kind of real. Tyrion also talking with Davos opened up an interesting plot point that I don't think they're going to do anything with it, but Davos is asking himself the question, what does the Lord of Light want? Which, there's a lot of conspiracy theories there, but I won't get into that. It's just, it was interesting conversations all around. Also, if you look carefully, Podrick got into a 3-way. So, good on you, Podrick Payne, getting a 3-way without saying a single line. I think maybe you say no at one point, or mumble something. But still, without saying a word, dude ended up in a 3-way. Good on you. You're a good man. You deserve it. And, okay, so the interesting plot things that happened. Daenerys is starting to get jealous of Jon's popularity. Because, Tormund basically calls him a king right in front of her. And the thing that I liked was not really Daenerys' reaction, because you can see the change in her mind. You can see the moment the wheels start turning. But the key thing there is that Varys notices the wheels start to turn. So I like that, because one of the things, if you remember, one of the things that I wanted to happen in this season is Varys betraying Daenerys, because she's turning into the Mad Queen. And I like it. I don't know how they're going to do it with only 2 episodes left, but they set up the possibility for it, and they build up from it. So, again, the hall scene, overall, really interesting. A lot of stuff happening there. But, okay, let's move on. So, again, the major plot point that I don't understand for this entire freaking season is that for some reason, Jon and Daenerys are in conflict, even though multiple times she says she's in love with Jon. So I was glad. A good thing is that finally Tyrion mentioned that why don't they just get married? It was the most obvious answer, and even Davos thought of it, but I'm glad that Tyrion finally suggested it. But Varys shot it down with the most ridiculous answer. Again, Targaryens married their siblings, so marrying your aunt is not really that weird for them. Even if you grew up in the North, most people understand it. They'll be like, oh, well, they're Targaryens. That's what they do. Because that's the way everybody saw it when a Targaryen did it. Oh, they're Targaryens. They're kind of like magical beings. That's what they do. They don't care. So I don't understand it. I don't understand why they shut it down in such a ridiculous way. How about if you just ask him? You know? One of the big rules I have for myself in my personal life, I mean, that's redundant, but whatever. One of the big rules I have to myself is never reject yourself, okay? Just ask. Take a risk. You'll never know. Jon might be into it. He's also kind of in love with her. I mean, he is in love with her. They've mentioned it. And they have the same goal. And apparently he's already planning on staying in freaking King's Landing with her after they take it. It makes no sense. You guys are trying to make an ocean out of a cup of water. Stop it. It makes no sense. Anyway, next scene, something happens that I said it was one of the things that I did not want to happen. Daenerys magically gets an army out of nowhere. Like, the generals get together and they say, oh, half of our troops are gone, half of our troops are gone. So she has half her army, right? We saw the frickin' Dothraki ride to their death. We saw the Unsullied stay out there and die. If they would have taken away 80% of the troops, I'd be happy. But half, only half, we saw what happened. We saw it. Again, if they're making the arguments that she had reserves, I'm going to be pissed because you do not keep reserves for a final stand, okay? You leave it all out on the field because it's your final stand. It really pissed me off when they said that. They could have just sent... the worst part is they actually had communication with the other lords. It's another thing that I wanted it to happen. I wanted them to communicate with Dorne. I wanted them to communicate with the Vale, and they did. But instead of saying, oh yeah, they're sending their forces, we're meeting up, no. They were just like, oh yeah, they support us. They support us. But not with military. Your army got decimated. We saw it happen. And you also... Okay, like I said... Game of Thrones has a really annoying habit of giving me what I want in the worst fucking way possible. I wanted Ghost to be back, and then they just discarded him like garbage, which he deserved better. I wanted them to send out letters to the other lords, and they did, but they didn't do anything about it. They magically gave her army back, and it pisses me off. It pisses me off. It's ridiculous. We saw it. They're trying to make fools out of us, and I don't like it. But anyway, okay. Let's move on to something else. Then in that same meeting, they make a pretty reasonable request about just staying there and resting. Because, after battle, you need to rest. You have bruises. Even if you weren't cut anywhere, you have bruises. You're tired. Your dragons were injured, so they could have used time to rest too. So maybe they were trying to show that Daenerys is kind of getting unhinged, which is fine. It just didn't make much sense that Jon supported her there. It was weird. So after that, you have the whole meeting of the Starks, the Stark reunion, which was one of the scenes that pretty much I think everybody was waiting for the most, the moment that the sisters find out who he really is. And they didn't show it to us. Are you fucking kidding me? One of the most interesting scenes we could have had. See Arya's and Sansa's reaction to that news. And you did it off screen. Fuck you, HBO. That's it. Fuck you. I have nothing else to say. How the fuck could you do that to your viewers? One of the most interesting things you could have showed us. Again, you could have done it earlier in one of the episodes that were wasted. But fuck you. That's it. That's all I have to do. Fuck you. You did it off screen. Fuck you. As I was watching that episode, I had to pause immediately after that scene because I saw them cut to Jaime and Tyrion talking. And like I said before, we usually don't stop and chat during an episode. Me and my friend, I watch it with my buddy Gil because he gets as stressed as I do. But we usually just go through it the first time without stopping, and then the second time we watch it, that's when we actually have conversation. I had to stop after that scene, and I turned and looked at him, and I told him, that better be the most fucking interesting scene in the world, and they better not say the word cock once, because I'm going to be fucking pissed that they did that off screen. I said it in a different way because I said it in Spanish, but that's pretty much the message that got through. And so they followed that up with Jaime and Tyrion getting interrupted by Bronn. By the way, Bronn says cocksucker twice, I think. So they did say the word cock, so I was upset by that. Anyway, the scene was very interesting because we thought, holy shit, this is where one of them gets it. And it would have been fantastic. Jaime has hooked up with Brienne, which was weird, but whatever. If that's what he's into, good for him. At least it's not her sister, which is something. And it would have been fantastic. Would have been great. It's like, oh, finally, consequences, and Bronn is back. Tyrion kind of talking his way out of it. And then they fuck it up. Like, nothing really happens. Okay, sorry. Bronn does the quickest reload of a freaking crossbow I've seen in my life. Like, not even with a Winchester could you have freaking reloaded that fast. It was ridiculous. And actually, if you look at it closely, I think that the freaking crossbow wasn't even tensed afterwards, but whatever. It's Bronn. He still could have beat him up. And also, he grabbed an arrow out of nowhere. I looked at him. He's not carrying arrows anywhere. Or, I'm sorry, bolts. They're called bolts. I'm sorry. But if you ignore that, it was actually one of the best scenes in that episode because it's kind of like a weird Western standoff. I really enjoyed it. The problem is that nothing really happened. I don't understand why Jaime cared about who had Highgarden. Who gives a fuck? The dude's threatening you with a crossbow and your brother's trying to save your life. Let it go. Okay, guy? Let it go. He has you dead to rights. He could be asking for your ass and you'd have to give it, okay? Just let it go. And this goes back to the whole thing that I did not understand. Why would Cersei send Bronn to kill them? Because he's kind of knows them. They're kind of friends in an odd way. And another thing that I don't get, and this goes all the way back to my complaints about consistency, Qyburn specifically says to Bronn when he gives him the crossbow, the queen pays up front and in gold. Then in that episode, Bronn is saying that if Cersei dies, he doesn't get paid. I don't think, either they don't know what getting paid up front means, or Bronn is lying. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say Bronn was lying, but that really fucking annoyed me. Because it's really out of character. Not that Bronn would lie, but it sounds more like Bronn that he would be like, oh yeah, I'm taking your sister's gold, and now you have to pay me too because you said so. So, win-win. So, he would be laughing about it. He would be like, I don't give a fuck. He's Bronn. He would actually find it funny. In fact, you know what? Let me buy you a drink with your sister's gold. He would find it amusing as fuck that he played Cersei. And now he's screwing over Tyrion with it. So, again, really annoyed me. Great scene. Fantastically acted. Just stupid overall. And irrelevant pretty much plot-wise because Jaime doesn't react to the fact that Cersei wants to kill him. Like, he's more worried about giving fucking Highgarden to Bronn than the fact that Cersei sent somebody to kill him. Like, and then afterwards he wants to go back to King's Landing to try and save her. It makes no sense. It makes no fucking sense. And Tyrion got fucking punched in the nose. He was bleeding. We saw it. The next scene we see Tyrion, we assume it's the next day, and he's talking to Sansa, and he's got nothing. Nothing on his face. Not even a bruise. Not even a little anything. Nothing. So, again, continuity issues up the wazoo in this show, and it really annoys me. But I guess it's par for the course. So let's move on. Once again, we return to one of the things that I didn't want to happen. I did not want Euron to be a chump anymore. And Euron was not a chump. He did a lot of stuff. He killed a fucking dragon. Which, again, okay, maybe I overthink things. But in the real world, we have scorpions. The type of weapon he was using, the siege weapon there, is called a scorpion. There's also a similar thing called a ballista. In the real world, there's no way that you could put that scorpion with that type of mobility on a ship. And that can move that way because it needs to be really, really steady. And if it's standing kind of like on a pin or a ball, you kind of need springs and stuff to hold it there and to be able to move it so comfortably. Because they move it super comfortably. They can aim it like it's a fucking crossbow. That's not how that works. Imagine, just right now, in the real world, grab a pen, tense it a little, and then let go of it. You can feel a whole lot of force going forward, right? Just grab a pen by one end, pull the other one back, tense it a little, and let go. You will feel your hand moving forward with that force. So, a weapon of that size that sends a ballista like a mile, and still it sent it with enough force to pierce a dragon's skin in the air, because it was going against gravity. So it needs a whole ton of force in order to do that. And so in order to be able to shoot with that kind of force, which is impossible, but whatever, it would need to be really, really steady. Holding on just by a pin or a little steel ball, would never work. It would never work. It's ridiculous. I know they needed to do it because Daenerys was too powerful at that point with the two dragons, and they needed to have like a weapon that was actually threatening to her. But it was just ridiculous. Also, that dragon was killed by bullshit. I love Euron, but the dragon was killed by bullshit. The range of a ballista is up to 500 yards. The range of a scorpion is around 400 yards. But the effective combat range of both is way, way lower. So the fact that they managed to hit a dragon that was way further than their effective combat range, in the air, moving, and by surprise, you know how easy it is to spot a ship with black sails and a golden kraken in the middle? Super easy, especially if you're in the air, especially if it's in the middle of the day. You know how hard it is to spot two dragons in the sky and know they're not birds? Really difficult. And they hit him by surprise. In a greater distance, they were like a mile away, maybe even more, against gravity. In movement is fucking bullshit. Also, afterwards, I don't understand why Daenerys just didn't circle around the island and hit him from behind. It seemed like the easiest option right there. And then, to further increase the bullshit, these scorpions shot at the other ships, again, like a mile away. And they blew through them like fucking cannonballs. Like, they did more damage than fucking cannonballs do in the real world. Are you kidding me? I can't tell you how many pirate movies I've seen or books I've read, because I love freaking pirates. I love sea battles. I love everything that has to do with them. And none of them have ever made this much damage. Ever, that I recall. Go back and think to any freaking sea battle you've ever seen in your life. None of them hit with as much force as this fucking scorpion shooting a javelin did to those ships. They cut through them like cake. Like nothing. Even Barristan Selmy would have been impressed. Then, to further continue the bullshit, the Greyjoys, who were right next to frickin' Dragonstone, never thought of taking Dragonstone. How about like, hey, we're right here, we're chilling, we're waiting for an ambush. How about if we just take her fucking castle? That way she doesn't have a castle right across the bay from ours. Ugh! That's one of the things that annoyed me the most in the previous season, that Daenerys just walked up to Dragonstone and took it because nobody was there, even though 1,000 Greyjoy ships just passed through it twice. Why does nobody take Dragonstone? Ugh, it's the first line of defense for King's Landing. Anyway, the cherry on top of that bullshit is that they took Missandei. How? I have no idea. How did they know that they took Missandei instead of thinking that she drowned? If you lose somebody in a shipwreck, you would assume that they drowned. You don't really think that she got kidnapped. And why does anybody else care? Like, I remember Sansa talking to Brienne, like, oh, and they kidnapped Missandei. Why the fuck would Sansa even know who Missandei is? Or why would they even report it? We saw them talk once, and it was not a pleasant conversation. So, I get why Daenerys cares, because it's like her only friend and her translator. But other than that, no fucking sense. I don't know why they cared. And I don't know why it would be a bargaining chip for Cersei. Like, how would Cersei know who the fuck Missandei is? And how does she know that Cersei cares about her at all? It was, again, the cherry on top of all the bullshit. Did it look cool? Yeah, it looked really cool. Was it surprising? You're goddamn right it was surprising. But made no fucking sense. No fucking sense at all. But, you know, that's Game of Thrones for you. Looks really good. Makes no fucking sense. Anyway, then we actually get some pretty interesting conversations between Tyrion and Varys, which, again, the reason why they're arguing that Jon and Daenerys getting married is stupid, but the conversation underneath is pretty interesting. Varys is considering betraying Daenerys because he's starting to see her get unhinged. Tyrion still wants to believe in her for reasons. Honestly, I don't think I've seen a reason why Tyrion wants to believe in Daenerys, but he does, so whatever. It sets up a lot of interesting stuff for the future because Daenerys always has two people standing right next to her, Tyrion and Varys, and if they're starting to fight each other, Could get ugly. Could get interesting. There's only 2 episodes left, so I don't know what the hell they're going to do. And I don't know how they're going to develop this, but it should be fun. I want Varys to betray her so bad. Extremely bad. Or at least turn Jon against her, because I want her to become the Mad Queen. And I want her to be the big bad. So, I mean, I get what they did, because they killed the big bad of the show already. I understand this. I understand that they killed the Night King too fast, and it makes no fucking sense moving forward, because they built up that character so much and they killed him without saying a single line. So they need to find somebody else who's an even bigger evil to replace him. And that's why they made Cersei so powerful. Which, again, Cersei's only real strength is Euron. Because Euron has given her everything. So he's got the ships. He brought down the dragon. He brought her an army. So it's Qyburn and who created the freaking scorpions, and Euron who's using them. That's Cersei's strength. So far, I don't get... She's not scary. She's not the one who would be the big bad. The only real big bad here would be the girl with the dragon who can go crazy at any second. So there's a theory going on that maybe it was all part of Bran's plan so that he could get rid of humanity, and that way the Children of the Forest could come back. But I don't see them being able to develop this in 2 episodes. They only have 2 episodes left, and they already set up what looks like it's going to be the end game here. So I don't know. It would be better, because I don't like this freaking storyline that they're going on, because it's stupid and it's senseless. Also, I'll give a point to my buddy Gil here. That was really hard to say. He said that the people in King's Landing would have completely owned the White Walkers, and I gotta say I agree, because for starters, they were not standing outside of their walls. They had multiple layers of walls and a castle, and Cersei actually thought of bringing the people into the castle, so I'll give it to them. A defense in King's Landing would have made way more sense than Winterfell, and it would have been way better, and they probably would have won. But anyway, moving on. Then we have Tyrion talking to Cersei, negotiating with Qyburn, trying to, find a peaceful solution to everything. Okay, so Cersei is in a stronger position because she has multiple dragon-killing weapons, plus she has the city, and is holding it hostage, plus she has the Greyjoy fleet, which, again, can kill dragons, so they can just keep ferrying in food and water. So stronger position. I don't like it, because I think they're just going to start nerfing the scorpions. Like, they showed the scorpions that can easily kill a dragon and destroy an entire fleet, and in the next episode, you'll see the scorpions are nowhere near as useful as they were in this episode. I'm telling you that right now. They're going to get nerfed. And the conversation between Tyrion and Cersei made no sense, because Tyrion never mentioned that Cersei was pregnant with Jaime's baby. And so, if I were Tyrion, I would assume that might cause some kind of drift with Euron. At least I would just throw it out there to see what happens. But it was weird. Like, that's the biggest card Tyrion had, and he didn't even try to use it. Then they killed Missandei, which, who cares? But the weird part here is that they killed Missandei while freaking Qyburn was outside. They killed her, and they just left the hand of the queen outside. Why Grey Worm did not at least throw his spear at him or something, just, a little bit of retribution, makes no sense. But choices, I guess. I don't know. It was just ridiculous. Overall, it was a ridiculous episode. It was better. It was the best one, and a lot of stuff happened. I did not like some of the stuff that happened. I do not like the direction the plot is going, but stuff happened, so I'll give it to them. So, okay, that's it for the good and the bad. Let's move on to the Martin. So, Game of Thrones is based on the books by George R. R. Martin titled A Song of Ice and Fire. That's what the whole series is known as, A Song of Ice and Fire. So, what does that mean? For starters, in medieval times, a song is another way of saying story. Because you know how there used to be musicians that travel from town to town singing songs, and those songs were usually stories. Like in Game of Thrones, The Reigns of Castamere, the story of how Tywin Lannister destroyed the House Reign. So if you follow that same logic here, the title is actually A Story of Ice and Fire. Now, why ice and fire? A lot of people think that it's because, the Starks symbolize ice. Their ancient great weapon, Valyrian steel sword, was called ice. Targaryens, they're fire, there's dragons, so that's probably it. No, I mean, it has to do with it, but it's not really the reason. George R. R. Martin has said that the reason why he called it A Song of Ice and Fire was because he was inspired by Robert Frost's poem, Fire and Ice, which is a very famous anti-war poem. And it's very interesting because I'm going to read it to you real quick. It's very short. Here it goes. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. The end. Okay, so that's the poem. And Robert Frost, the author, has talked about where he got the inspiration for the story, and it came from a conversation that he had with the most famous and most important astrologer of his time. And he asked the astrologer, hey, how do you think the world's going to end? So the astrologer told him, well, honestly, I think that it's possible that the sun is going to explode in a few years, and in that explosion, the earth will either be burned to a crisp, or we will survive the blast somehow, and we'll just be a frozen rock wandering in space because we'll have no source of heat anymore. So we'll just freeze in space and float around there. Now, this poem is considered an anti-war poem because it's so glaring that war is not mentioned anywhere in what he thinks will destroy the earth. And you have to keep in mind, this is the 1920s. It was written in 1920. So World War I, or the Great War as they called it back then, had just happened. The biggest war ever. So most people thought that what was going to cause the destruction of the earth was war. And yet it is blatantly omitted from the poem. So again, it's very glaring. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, the theory goes that what you don't consider is what's going to kill you. And in A Song of Ice and Fire, again, if you want to represent ice with the Night King, sure. If you want to represent fire with Daenerys, sure. Those would be like the two biggest threats in the books. Well, what you don't realize is that what's actually killing you is the war. The war that you're causing amongst yourselves, either by trying to stop one or the other, who really aren't that big of a threat, really, compared to the threat that you've caused internally, is what's going to kill you. So a lot of people expect the way, because George R. R. Martin likes bittersweet endings, so it is highly expected that it's not going to be a big fight against a Night King type character, which in the books he doesn't exist, or a big fight against Daenerys trying to stop her conquering of the world with her dragons, or the dragons themselves who are going to kill you. No, it's the conflict that you caused amongst yourself that is slowly but surely killing you. And in the books, it's way more dramatic because they're burning fields. People don't have food. Winter is coming. Well, actually, winter is there now. And you just keep killing and killing and killing each other. So there's a point where you just have to stop. And if they don't, then all the characters will end up dead. They'll die in the war, fighting each other, trying to finish up the War of the Five Kings. But anyway, hopefully you found that interesting. I love that little fun fact, and I really enjoy that poem. It gives you a lot to think about. But anyway, that's it for the mountain. Hopefully you enjoyed this segment. And I got a lot of news that I need to catch up over the weekend. Like I said, I didn't have my phone, so I wasn't really checking the internet. So I will be checking up on all the news that I missed over the weekend, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. As always, if you want to contact me, at Dario the Show on Instagram, you can find me there. Comments, questions, suggestions. I'm always happy to receive them. Like I said, I'm a little backed up right now, but I always reply to everybody. Let me know what you thought about the segment. Let me know what you thought about last night's episode. Like I said, it was the best one of the season, but I still had a lot of issues with it, but that's nothing new. So let me know what you think. Maybe I missed something. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.